Today, we're diving headfirst into one of literature's absolute most unsettling psychological thrillers, Franz Kafka's The Trial. We're going to unpack the sheer absurdity, the utter helplessness, and the dizzying circular logic that makes this piece a defining pillar of modern fiction. Put yourself in those shoes for just a second. Imagine waking up in your own bed, in a free country, only to find strange men in your home who place you under arrest, and yet they absolutely refuse to tell you what you've actually done wrong. It's a terrifying premise, right? Well, that is exactly where our story kicks off, instantly stripping away every normal rule of society. This sets the stage for Josef K's deeply inverted hero's journey. Instead of a hero venturing out into the world to conquer some known evil, our protagonist, K, is thrust inward. He gets trapped in this suffocating, inescapable maze where the harder he fights for clarity, the more hopelessly entangled he becomes. Which brings us to Section 1, the mysterious birthday arrest. We start our chronological descent into this labyrinth on the very morning of Josef K's 30th birthday. It's a day that really should be a celebration, but instead it marks the sudden end of his life as he knows it. Now, what's genuinely fascinating about this moment is how K completely dismisses the situation at first. He treats the intrusion of these strange warders, who, by the way, have the audacity to eat his personal breakfast right in front of him, as some sort of bizarre practical joke orchestrated by his coworkers at the bank. He just assumes reason is going to quickly prevail. So right away, there's this massive clash between K's logical modern life as a high-ranking bank official and the archaic, dreamlike insanity of these arresting officers. K demands identification. He demands arrest warrants, appealing to the rule of law. But the warders? They basically just shrug and say they don't hunt for guilt. Rather, guilt draws them out. They're operating in a reality totally outside of K's rational framework. Let's move into Section 2, the absurd attic courtroom, and see how this all escalates when K is summoned to his very first hearing on a Sunday. He's given a time to show up, but no specific directions, which forces him to just wander aimlessly through an impoverished neighborhood, hoping to stumble upon the legal proceedings. The stark contrast here brilliantly highlights the complete absurdity of the situation. Ka works in this spacious, authoritative bank office overlooking a bustling square. Yet the High Court, the very institution holding his life in the balance, is running its operations out of a decaying, squalid slum. It's packed with hanging laundry and just heaps of unneeded junk. It flips our entire expectation of judicial grandeur completely upside down. Interestingly enough, K tries to use this staggering poverty to puff himself up. He mocks the court's lack of resources to feel a sense of superiority, but honestly, it's purely a defense mechanism. The deeply claustrophobic, suffocating nature of this attic courtroom, with its unbreathable air and this bizarre gallery of onlookers, is already starting to close in on him, physically draining his energy. Moving on to Section 3, the bank and the painter. As K tries to shake off that bizarre hearing and just get back to his normal, respected life at the bank, the terrifying reach of this unseen court system suddenly crashes right into his everyday reality. Okay, before we go a single step further, we really need to quickly talk about the term Kafkaesque. Because what happens next to Josef K in a simple storage room at his workplace is pretty much the textbook definition of a nightmarishly complex, bizarre, and illogical bureaucracy invading ordinary life. OK opens a door at his bank, expecting to find a typical lumber room. Instead, he finds the two officers who arrested him being violently whipped by a leather-clad executioner. And why? Simply because K had complained about them at his hearing. Discovering this whip man dealing out savage punishment right inside his place of business totally shatters any illusion of safety K had left. He's left feeling utterly helpless. I mean, the court is quite literally inside the walls of his normal life. Desperate for a way out, K goes seeking help, but that only accelerates his downward spiral. He visits Tittarelli, an official court painter who lives in an even smaller, more stifling attic than the courtroom, surrounded by this gang of menacing, depraved teenage girls. And instead of actual help, Tittarelli offers entirely frustrating, circular legal advice. He basically tells K that absolute acquittal is impossible. The absolute best he can hope for is a temporary postponement, which would keep him in an eternal, anxious limbo. And it's not just the painter. Everywhere K turns, he finds these systems that are purposely designed to drain the accused of all their agency and hope. Take his lawyer, Dr. Hould. In his office, there is literally a hole in the floor of the waiting room. It's designed specifically to humiliate the litigants, to make them fall. and to constantly remind them that a real defense is impossible. Even the architecture itself is weaponized against the individual. This brings us to Section 4, Parable of the Doorkeeper. The philosophical peak of this story happens in a dark, empty, rain-swept cathedral. Here, K has a chance encounter with a prison chaplain, who finally reveals the true crushing nature of the law. The priest tells K this absolutely devastating parable about a life wasted in futile waiting. A man from the country begs a doorkeeper for entry to the law, but the doorkeeper just says, "Not yet." So, the man waits. He sits on a stool and waits for years. He bribes the guard, he grows old, his vision fades, his mind slips to the point where he's literally begging the fleas on the guard's coat for help. It vividly reinforces this core theme of utter helplessness. He wastes his entire existence just sitting on a stool. Then, right as the man is taking his dying breath, he asks the guard why no one else ever came to this specific door. And the agonizing revelation in the guard's response changes everything. The open door was a trap tailored specifically for him all along. The ultimate tragedy here isn't just that he was denied entry. It's that he voluntarily chose to spend his entire life paralyzed by an arbitrary authority figure. Naturally, Kay and the priest immediately debate what this story means. They argue back and forth. Did the doorkeeper maliciously cheat the man, or is the doorkeeper himself just some simple-minded subordinate trapped by his own empty duty to the system? But the terrifying truth Kafka is getting at is that the debate itself is a total distraction. It doesn't actually matter what the guard's intentions were. The man's life is gone regardless. The system wins simply by stalling you unto death. And that grim realization brings us to Section 5, the inevitable execution. We finally arrive at the climax of the story, taking place exactly 1 year to the day after Kay's initial mysterious birthday arrest. The dramatic pacing peaks right here. Two pale, fat gentlemen in top hats and frock coats show up at Kay's door. Without saying a single word, they link arms with him and lead him out of the city in the moonlight, eventually arriving at an abandoned quarry. And what's really striking is that Kay offers almost no resistance to his executioners. The sheer psychological weight of the past year has entirely ground him down. They lay him down against a stone and produce a double-edged butcher's knife. Here we witness the ultimate horror of the court's twisted logic. The men pass the knife back and forth over Kay's body, fully expecting the victim to complete the injustice himself. They want him to take the knife and do their dirty work for them. But Kay, exhausted and drained, just lacks the final perverse strength required to execute himself. As they lay hands on his throat and push the knife deep into his heart, Kay's eyes catch a distant flicker of light. Up in a top-floor window, he spots a faint figure with outstretched arms reaching out. It's a final fleeting glimpse of unfulfilled hope, a heartbreaking reminder of the human connection and justice that he was entirely denied throughout this whole nightmarish ordeal. We leave you with Kay's chilling final words, like a dog. It is a provocative, haunting reminder that the shame of this relentless, absurd, and faceless system is going to long outlive the man it destroyed. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the trial. It leaves us with a heavy yet incredibly necessary question. In our own modern world of complex algorithms and endless bureaucracy, are we truly free, or are we simply waiting at our own assigned doors? Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.